Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Ariana Martinez. A man has been in prison for 20 years, despite someone else confessing to the crime. A pardon hearing for Ernest Jackson is coming up later this month. Advocates for Jackson are doing what they can to help. Channel 8's Matthew Mittleiter met with one group who is writing letters to try and help set Jackson free.
Over 20 years ago, Ernest Jackson was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Jackson was convicted on the testimony of one witness who described him as a dark-skinned man with braided hair and a blue t-shirt, who he saw at the crime scene. In subsequent trials, one of Jackson's co-defendants admitted to the shooting and testified that Jackson was not at the scene. The co-defendant was acquitted by the jury on grounds of self-defense. Despite this confession, Jackson was still convicted and has been incarcerated for over 20 years. Now, advocates are fighting for Jackson's freedom and trying to argue for his release from prison.
This is, though, an example of an injustice in how the system isn't working, and so we need more people to be aware of how the system is actually working or not working, and we need to fix it.
The Letters to Free Ernest Jackson event was held on Monday morning at Meadowlark Coffee Shop, where participants wrote letters to the Nebraska Board of Pardons, which is made up of the Governor, Secretary of State, and State Attorney General. The group hopes by writing letters and protesting they will convince the board to free Ernest and fix what they believe to be an injustice.
I think this is a fundamental case of how our system believes it should just keep its procedures and laws and whatnot in place over the value of people's lives.
They say the shooting 20 years ago was a tragedy, but not a crime. They say even the justice system believes that the person who confessed to the crime is not guilty, which leaves the question as to why Jackson is still behind bars.
20 years in prison for something somebody else confessed to. Nobody would believe that's true. But here we have it right here in Nebraska. It's not a speculation, us making leaps. It's not a case of a procedural default. So why are we having to fight for somebody's life to come out of a prison system when we know what happened and it wasn't that person?
Later this month, on September 19th, there will be a pardon hearing for Ernest Jackson to decide if the punishment for the crime should be reduced and if Jackson should be released from prison. Reporting in Lincoln, this is Matthew Mittleiter, Channel 8 News.
Activists are planning to be at the pardon hearing later this month to show their support. Lincoln residents can learn more about Ernest Jackson and what's being done to free him on our website, klkntv.com.